Hello everybody and welcome to OTR Racing's Love Team Time Trial Show. This week we're on week 11 and we have 11 teams doing a head-to-head. I'm going to be showing 1 kilometre, 5 kilometre and 10 kilometre time splits. And here we go. I'm going to do the first kilometre teams in reverse order. So first up we've got OTR Eureka. Big thanks to Steve Elliott for sending me in the footage. This is his footage. And I'll just quickly go through the team with you. We've got Johan Conge, Brian Pardon, Troy Buss, Alfred Worry, Stephen Elliott and Jim Robinson. Now obviously the camera view is from Stephen's point of view, so you won't get the changes in view that I normally have, but it's pretty good footage and it will give us a good indication of how well the team are going. Here we go, it's swapping views around now. Now I normally turn the name tags off, but as I say, this is not my footage. And OTR Eureka, even though they are holding up the leagues, they are gaining in experience in terms of, you can see the drafting here, more of which I'm going to mention later, but how well they ride together. And while they're not the fastest team on the block, they are certainly well drilled by now. And that's quite important. And I'm going to go on, as I say, a bit later on in the video, we're going to cover a little bit on drafting and why it's so important. But OTR Eureka staying together. They managed to put out 6 riders. And let's see at the 5 and 10 kilometre splits just how many of these riders they've managed to hang on to as we approach the 1 kilometre mark. And there we go, 1 kilometre in about 1 minute 40, I think, give or take. Okay, and as you can see, the following footage was sent in by Dave Morrison. Again, thanks again for sending it in. This video starts at the 12-second mark, so I'm doing the countdown. And we have how many riders? 4 riders from West London VR2. Now this is the first time I've covered VR2. I previously managed to get VR1 recorded. In fact, I've done that this week. But VR2 are not actually showing on my list of team names, so I can't go through the riders with you. I do recognise some of the names. Davidson, Thacker, Davis and Morrison, of course. I think the video quality, as I say, you'll have to appreciate it's not always possible for me to get the best quality when I'm dealing with footage that has been sent in. But it's nice just to get more teams into the final show. And again, the West London teams do tend to stay together. They do tend to be pretty well experienced in team time trialing, and generally do stay together pretty well. But obviously this is from the viewpoint of Dave Morrison, as we see them going up and past the 1 kilometre in 1:29. As I say, in reverse time order, these first kilometres that I'm showing. And next up we've got Agility Australia. Now when I recorded this, I thought it was C, D and E, but obviously I didn't realise it was BA that I clicked on. They all go off at the same time. A and B, BA and C, D, E all go off at the same time, which is why I made the mistake of thinking I'd recorded C, D, E. which I could have done actually, because I've been sent in footage of Australia BA by other users, and I've not had to use it because, as I say, I've now got the footage. Now I'm going to highlight Australia BA in the drafting feature that's coming a bit later in the video, because I think not only does this team look a little bit ragged, I assume they're relatively new to this, but they really struggle with the concept of riding as a team, certainly today anyway, as you're going to see. Let's see how many of these 6 riders can actually get to the 1 kilometre point. I actually think all 6 of them do eventually make it to the 1 kilometre, but very shortly after that, as you'll see from the drafting video, we see splits in this team. It would also be nice, and I mentioned this in Series 1, it would be nice if the riders could chat with each other and actually try and come in the same jerseys, ride the same bikes, same helmets, just look a bit more professional. It looks, like I say, it looks a bit ragged, not just the footage, but the whole team overall, just a viewing pleasure. I mean, this is how it should be. This is 3R Mushroom, all in the 3R jerseys, all on the same bike, all wearing the same helmets, and they look a very, very well polished unit. You've got my good friend Jonathan Geddes as a team leader here, but where are we? You've also got Graham Saunders, you've got Gareth Bancroft, Mike Wood and John G, and they generally ride pretty well together. They have been doing this a while, I have to say, both on this platform and on the other platform. 3R have become quite adept at team time trials. I say that as Graham is just slightly off the back here. Sorry, not Graham, Gareth. But he soon gets back on. But you can see he's having to put in a decent amount of wattage to get back to the other riders. Now, quite often, if a rider's left at the start and can't match the pace of the faster riders, the team have already agreed that they won't wait, they won't ease up, and they won't wait for slower riders. And that's a correct procedure, providing you having sufficient riders to be able to complete the ride and still do enough recovery for the remaining riders by doing through and off. As I say, more about that in a short while. But you would expect a team like 3R to stay together, and in fact True 2 will go in later. That's one of the reasons why they're currently leading the standards. Okay, the first of the New Zealand teams, Neck Minute, and they've got 5 riders out. And again, this is a pretty experienced team. Expect Tom Gollins, Brooke Armishaw, Stephen Hans, Kevin Opelli and Sammy Lee. Now, expect this team to relatively stay together. Yes, you can see that a rider was a bit slow off the line, but he very quickly joins on the back, as you can see here. In fact, straight up to where he should be at the front. And the team will very quickly form up and then ride as a unit. They're a very well-drilled unit, the New Zealanders, in general. I always like covering them. So you can see here, already going into the, some of the riders are already going into the red, pushing the pace along at the start. the first kilometre should be fairly crucial to the teams in terms of getting off to a good start, forming up, and just getting into a routine ready for, what follows. You shouldn't really be seeing any major splits in this first kilometre, which is one of the reasons why I show them in this highlights programme, and I like to cover the first kilometre of all the teams individually, because it is quite important. Okay, I'm just going to have to walk away from the computer. I've got my little girl walking up the stairs. Yeah, and there she is saying hello to us. Hello, Charlotte. Yes, I'm sorry, I'm busy, Charlotte. Can you go back to Mummy? Okay, and Australia AB, the footage was sent in by Ricky Pedersen. Again, many thanks. Now this was taken on an iPad, I believe, so that's why the different format and the colours look a little bit bright. And sadly, only 3 riders. They did struggle to try and get a team together for this, so only 3 riders. Home studio, folks. It's always very difficult with the children, trying to keep them out of the attic, trying to keep them out of the studio. So my apologies if you heard that background noise. But it would be nice to see RGT Australia AB actually field a full team, because it would be interesting to see what kind of time they could put in when they are getting sufficient recovery between the riders and able to really push on the pace. 3 riders are never going to be able to compete with 5 or 6 of the other teams. Yes, they may well be strong and even faster riders, but they're always going to lose out to some extent to the bigger teams, because you're not getting that recovery from, one rider going on the front and peeling off and allowing another rider to come through. And what you often find, as you can see here happening with Steve Knight, Steve's actually doing a long pull on the front. He's in the red, and you often find the stronger riders doing the longer pulls. Okay, so next team up, West London VR1. This is my footage. I managed to capture them. And we've got Nicolo Martinoli, Warren Gardner, Ellen Lockett, Tobias Bork, and Stu Thorne. Again, I've said it in previous weeks, but it's worth repeating. West London VR are a team to watch in terms of tactics and the way they ride a team time trial. Very well drilled unit, very strong. It appears that all the riders do their fair share of turns on the front. So, we can see that Nicolo looks to have been dropped here off the back. I don't know whether he gets back on. I can't remember from this footage, but looking at the fact that he's 500 metres behind now, no, it looks like he's had a dropout. So it looks like we're down to the 5 riders right out from the gun, which is a bit of a shame. Although I've just noticed that Martinoli is actually showing twice in the rider list. So, yeah, I wonder if one of the riders is actually a camera. Could be. So anyway, we've got 5 riders taking part. And expect a fairly decent time from West London to this first kilometre point. As I say, they form up very quickly, well drilled. And next up we've got Team Viper. They've managed to field 6 riders again this week. I'll run through them in a moment. You've got Brian Harding, Christopher O'Hearn, Chris Little, Johan Luke, Paxti Aribas, and who's the one that isn't on my current list? You got Chris Little. Oh, Van Reef. Wait a minute. Van Reef. My apologies, folks. Van Reef was asked to leave. He wasn't actually part of the time trial. He joined the event and we asked him to leave. And to his credit, well done, Mr. Reef. He did leave the event. Or he didn't start anyway. So Team Viper, you're going to see more of Team Viper a bit later in the video because I'm going to use them when I'm talking about the drafting section. Purely and simply because you can see how well formed up Team Viper are and how well they ride a team time trial. And also because last week I actually missed out on some of the footage, so that's one of the reasons why I chose them this week to have a bit of extended highlights. But I always enjoy watching this team because they do seem to have really very quickly formed up and got it together. They're a multinational team, as you can see from the rider list. You've got Welsh, Spanish, Chris I think is using the New Zealand flag, another Spanish flag, you've got a British flag, and of course you've got me from Holland. But yeah, so a multinational team, but don't they ride well together? They really do. I'm not sure if they use Discord, whether they are actually communicating in the race, but they certainly go well together. Okay, my teammates, OTR Blue, are next off the line. Now you've got Paul Puddell here, very strong rider, Kevin Barkley, Gordon Jackson, Jim Ogilvie, and Neil Walker. So they're fielding 5 riders this week. There they go. And again, another team, expect them to stay together. Off the line, they'll reach the 1 kilometre point as a unit unless somebody has a dropout. Big mention out to Neil here, because Neil has suffered 2 dropouts over the last couple of weeks with OTR Blue, and I think he actually suffers one today as well. We'll see later on in the footage. So if Neil is dropped from this group, you understand why. It's because he has a dropout, not because he can't keep the pace. I'm pretty sure it's in my notes that Neil has another dropout this week. But you can see how well they ride together. Very close. And again, one of the nice things I like about the OTR Blue team is that a couple of the riders, and I don't think they'll mind me saying this, a couple of the riders are a little bit stronger than the rest and take extended turns on the front. And that's the correct thing to do in a team time trial if you have slightly stronger members. Your stronger members should be doing the longer pulls on the front. Not that this is a weak team by any means. All these riders are very well matched, which is why they're such a good team. And in fact, they're running, they're actually climbing the leaderboard at OTR Blue because they are starting to catch up on the teams ahead of them. Okay, the second of the New Zealand teams, Tumeki. And they've got 4 riders turning up. Now, for some reason, I think this is my footage, but we've got a little bit of fuzziness here. I hope it gets itself sorted out as the team get underway. I'm pretty sure this is, yes, it is my footage. I can recognise it. There we go, that's better. Must have just been on the line. There was a little bit of haze. So 3 riders off from the gun, leaving behind Osborne, who no, in fact, that's why the footage is not quite up to scratch. This is not my footage, folks. This has been sent in. Or is it? You know, I'm really not sure. Doesn't look as good a quality as the rest of the footage from some of the other teams I've covered, so I don't know what was happening here. But this is a team, again, riding very, very well, pushing 3R through 2 very close. Now, what I did notice today was that Osborne, who you see off the back here, he does seem to struggle to hold the pace at times during this race today. And of course, the riders in front are certainly not going to slow down for him. This is a team that tend to go full gas from the off. And they don't tend to slow down for riders, so if a rider can't hack the pace, they tend to get left behind. Not saying Osborne can't hack the pace, but there you go. And this is the team currently in the lead, 3R through 2, the last of the 11 teams off. Again, a team I know very well, fielding 5 riders. Let's see if we can find them. Jonathan Orr. Jeffries, Davis Jeffries, Mikael Rasmussen, Andy Widders and Gaff Shearer. Now again, it goes without saying, True 2 are, Race 3R and True 2 are very, very experienced when it comes to team time trials. So don't expect to see any splitting of this team unless somebody actually has an issue, either a dropout or some kind of a mechanical, because they generally do stay together and they're very well matched as well in terms of pacing. And again, you'll often notice that with some of the stronger teams like True 2, if any rider's feeling good legs on the day, they will do extended turns on the front, and you can see that happening with True 2 later on in the race. But generally they do swap around really nicely and take good effect of the drafting. So while we're waiting for True 2 to, there we go, reach the 1 kilometer point, one of the things I will just mention about the audio and the dialogue, folks, is that I do this off the cuff. The recording is not pre-recorded. It's done as a one-off, and so any mistakes I made, any background noise from the children that you hear is done live. Okay, so this is the feature that I fitted in this week, and it's a brief look at drafting, and in this case how not to draft. Now we see Australia BA here breaking up very quickly after getting past the 2 kilometer point. You can see here the riders are all over the road. There's no sort of like teamwork. Look at the huge gaps between the riders. Lowe and White have decided to take off and leave behind their teammates. White actually puts in a big effort to come round Lowe, but doesn't stop. He actually continues on and goes whizzing past and goes up the road. Here we go. There you go. He's away. He's gone. And I think he goes something like 50 meters up the road. Now this is totally, I'm sorry folks, but this is totally ridiculous and not how to ride. Look at that gap. This is not how to ride a team time trial. Yes, he's making the riders behind, and you can see they've joined up to try and get on his wheel. So you could maybe have an argument for, well, yeah, okay, he's pushing the pace. But watch what happens when the team actually get to him. Okay, well, that's later in the footage. But now we'll have a look at how it should be done. Okay, and for this example, I've chosen Team Viper. Now watch what happens here. Small gaps appear, and look how closely and how smoothly, in this case it's Chris O'Hearn, closes up the gap. He doesn't rush, he doesn't go fast and whiz through the group. He slowly closes up the gap, takes his place along with his teammate there, and they swap around positions. Now each of them will take a fair turn on the front, but you can clearly see that the man on the front is really pushing the red numbers. The rest are taking part in the drafting. Now when you can, take an eye over to the top left hand corner when it shows you the savings from drafting. Look at this, 180, 200 watts saved there, 115. You can see the difference that drafting makes, the savings, 200 watts plus their savings in drafting alone. And that's not to be sniffed at. If you're getting in the draft and you are saving, even for only a few seconds, 200 watts, it means you're recovering. You're able to sit back, you're able to recover. I mean, look at the difference in wattage to the guy on the front pushing the red numbers and the fellows behind pushing easy numbers. I say easy is relative. You know, the guy on the front is pushing 5.7, 5.8. Some of the riders behind 2.5. So the riders behind are taking advantage of the drafting by doing half the effort of the riders out front. And that's why drafting is so important. Now on my channel, there's a video put together with James Ogilvy doing a drafting clinic. And I suggest if you want to learn more about drafting, go and check out my channel, find the video, just type in drafting in the search and you'll find the video. And James did a whole series on positioning and drafting. But you can see just how well this team work together and the savings. As I say, look again at the green numbers and look at the savings that are being made by these riders drafting each other. Okay, we're coming towards the end of the section, so we'll get on with the 5 kilometer splits in a moment. But this is a really good example of how to ride a team time trial. And don't forget, there are only 5 riders. If there were 6 riders, there'd be even more recovery for each rider here. Okay, so we're on to the 5 kilometer splits. And this time I've put us back in the 4-way view. I think this is probably one of the better views in terms of being able to see all the teams side by side. Now what I've had to do here is, because some of the teams are like Eureka are significantly behind, West London VR2 are significantly behind Australia BA and Mushroom, I've edited so that the timings that you're seeing are not actually collating to each other. That's the word I was looking for. So I actually spaced it, I think, by about 30 seconds. But the times will come up on screen, as you can see here. And you're able to see that BA got there first in 7 minutes and 13 seconds, with Mushroom just after them in 7:14. And then next we had West London VR2 in 7:38. And then bringing up the rear, but still looking nice together, is OTR Eureka. And they did it in 8:08. And I do think it's nice to be able to get all 4 teams on screen like this, showing the times for the 5 kilometer splits as well. I like the idea of this. Comments are more than welcome if you do too, because I think I'll probably stay with it. Okay, what I've done here, because we've got 11 teams, I've decided to show the next 3 teams and then save the last, the 4 fastest teams for the end section of the 5 kilometer splits. So we've only got 3 running in this particular head-to-head. And who gets there first? I think Team Viper get there first. Yes, you can clearly see they're just in the lead. Now all the times should be the same. They should all be, yes, they are more or less, maybe half a second in it. So Viper are going to get there first at the 5 kilometer split. And then I think we've got Australia AB and Neck Minute fighting it out. Now there is a change around at the 10 kilometer mark. See if you can spot that. Okay, so 5 kilometers hit by Team Viper in 6:56. 4 seconds later, we got Australia AB. And then a further 7 seconds later, we got Neck Minute. But Neck Minute do have a bit of a switch around later on in the footage. Now, as I say, if you like the four-way split or you'd want to see something else, just leave a comment on the YouTube video, and I read all the comments, and I do take notice of what people are saying. So I do generally try and fit in with what your requirements are. Now, this is a closer match, which is why I wanted to put all four of these teams side by side. You can see that West London VR1 and OTR Blue, there's absolutely nothing in those two teams. There's less than a second between West London VR1 and OTR Blue. A bit more of a difference between 3R2 who went through in 6:39, but Tumeki weren't that far behind in 6:47, so only 8 seconds behind. So as I say, Tumeki are really pushing True 2. But West London VR1 and OTR Blue both came through in 6:54. So less than a second between the two of them, which is why they're both showing the same time. And look how well the teams are riding as well. You know, staying together. Yeah, it looks like Osborne is slightly struggling off the back, as I said he was with Tumeki. But he does get back on. He does manage to get back on later in the footage. Okay, and because it's a slightly longer video, I'm rushing through this section, and we're straight on to the 10-kilometer splits. And again, I've split this up slightly different to the 5-kilometer splits to show the teams closer together. Now, Eureka and West London VR2 are the two teams holding up the league. Australia BA and Mushroom are not that far apart. I think Mushroom get there first at the 10-kilometer mark, but BA are pushing them as well. In fact, yes, you can clearly see Mushroom are going to arrive at the 10-kilometer mark first in 14:47. But I don't think Australia BA are that far behind. There you go, 14:53. So only 6 seconds in it, and a further 7 seconds to... Sorry, not even 7 seconds. West London VR. Oh, yes, of course, I've edited the footage to bring the times closer. And OTR Eureka coming in 16:49. Now, as I say, I changed it around again here. As you can see, we've got a 4-way instead of the 3-way split that we had at the 5. And the reason being is because the teams were closing up on each other. And Team Viper and West London VR1 were within a second of each other, as you can clearly see on. In fact, exactly the same times going through the splits here. So it'll be interesting to see which of these two teams grabs the 10-kilometer point first. There's less than a second between them, and Neck Minute and Australia AB are also very close together. So I can't quite remember which of the teams makes it to the point. It looks like Viper have just pulled in front of West London VR1, but it can so easily be overturned because this is so close. Less than 100 meters between these two teams. So who's going to get there first? I mean, and West London VR1 are coming back at Team Viper as well. Wow. This is quite a good battle, folks. 14:15 for Viper. 14:17, so 2 seconds. West London VR1 couldn't quite close up on Viper. But what a good race that was. Now, can they overturn it at the finish? That's the question. 14:31 for Australia AB. And I don't think next minute are going to be that far behind that either. There we go, 14:44, so 13 seconds. So pretty tight races there, I think you'll agree. One of the reasons why I put it as a four-way split. But the three fastest teams now go off obviously last. And here we go. And this is an interesting race. Now, Tumeki really trying to close the gap on OTR True 2. And towards the end of the race, to be honest, they do a fantastic job of pulling back True 2. Whether they make it or not, I'll leave you to have a look. But yeah, they really do a good job of pulling back some of the time. And OTR Blue, as I say, improving week upon week and not out of it either. If you look at, what are they? They're only just over 100 metres behind Tumeki. So this is a pretty close race coming into the finish. True 2 obviously got there first in 13:43, but only 10 seconds behind Tumeki with a 13:53. And then I think OTR Blue are due to roll over the line very, very shortly. Yes, as you can see from screen, 14:08 for OTR Blue. But we lost coverage of Tumeki. I do apologise. And that's it for them. Now, I will put their time up at the finish, but sadly we've no more coverage of Tumeki due to a technical problem. I hate it when that happens, and hopefully I can make it up to Tumeki by giving them a little bit more coverage next week. I generally try to give the teams equal coverage or as close as I can. Obviously, it's going to differ some weeks because of the time being put in. Okay, and we're down to the final kilometre, and this time we're full screen on all the teams. So we've got 11 teams to go. Well, 10 actually, because don't forget Tumeki we don't have. So OTR Eureka first up. They were the last team to come in. And I generally started it with about 1 kilometre to go for all the teams, irrespective of the times that they're doing. Now, what's really nice here is that Steve Elliott, who is actually created this footage, switched the camera view to get his teammates in front, but he's actually riding a kilometre behind these folks. He got dropped. But the four riders, his four teammates, continued on together and rode very, very well to the finish, as you can see here, staying together. I'm very impressed with this team in terms of the way they ride the team time trials. And here we go into the finish. So 27:56 for Eureka. And the four riders of West London VR2, you can see, are all still together. And that's a feature of West London. I do think both teams ride excellent time trials in terms of keeping their riders together and staying together, taking fair turns on the front. I mean, this footage was sent to me by Dave Morrison here. I'm not sure whether Dave stays the course with this team. I think he does. But it can be a bit difficult sometimes switching views when you're racing. So, you know, if you do lose some of the riders as you're doing here, like we've lost sight of the fourth rider, that's because Dave is probably going full gas here and can't switch views at the same time, whereas obviously all I'm doing is commentating and doing the race coverage, and I have that luxury. But yeah, they dropped Davidson. You can see Davidson got dropped, so these 3 riders are going on to the finish together. Now I think they finish about a minute ahead of OTR Eureka, so yeah, there we go, 26:51. So that's just over a minute quicker than OTR Eureka. Now, remember we had this team, some of the riders from this team taking part in the BA. Mr. Lowe here probably had tired legs because he actually helped out with one of the other teams as well. Because there were big gaps and because it's not my footage, obviously we didn't get the same amount of footage that we do. If you have a look back at that footage, you'll see that his teammates set off up the road and left him behind. Now, 3R Mushroom, they need to get their third rider onto the wheel. He's slightly distant at the moment, as you can see, but they will. They'll close it up. These lads know what they're doing. There we go. And all 4 riders coming into the finish together. Obviously, 3 of them may well peel off and go and gun it to the line. Which is exactly what is happening. Yeah, I expected this. So they left behind Gareth Bancroft. He's done his bit. He's worked well, actually, in this team. I watched the whole footage. And Jonathan, well, 2 Jonathans, Jonathan Stone and Jonathan Geddes, and Graham Saunders, the 3 riders bringing it into the finish. Now, these are my ex-teammates, so I know them all personally. They're all very strong riders. And they're going to come in with a 24:44. Good ride, folks. And who have we got next up? Neck Minute. First of the New Zealand teams. And again, look at how well these 4 are riding together. Now, obviously, they've dropped Steve Lee earlier on in the ride. We didn't see that. I can't show everything, folks. I generally do try and show the dropped riders. But because this is a slightly longer video due to us putting in the section on drafting, I think it's about a 50-minute video. So because it's a slightly longer video, I left out the highlights showing dropped riders. And I hope you'll forgive me for that. Normally, we do include that. So Steve Lee was dropped out. And these 2 riders will get back to their compatriots and they'll come across the line together, I'm pretty sure. Come on, Kevin, close that gap up. Oh, Kevin is leaving behind. Sorry, Army Shaw. Leaving behind Kevin. And that's a nice way to close the gap. Going red, closing the gap, making sure, because it's important, 3 riders to count. So it's important that the 3 riders try to cross the line as close together as they can, which is what they did there. Very good riding by Army Shaw. Yeah, impressed with that. Okay, and Australia AB, the top Australia team. Sadly, only the 3 riders that they started with. I do think they could do much faster times if they could get a team of 6. Hopefully they can moving forward in future weeks. But this is Ricky Pedersen is the guy that sent me in the footage. He took this on his iPad or tablet, which is why it's a square format. But thanks for sending it in, Ricky, because otherwise I wouldn't have had you, and it's nice to try and show as many teams as we can. And they put in a good ride to say there's only 3 riders. I mean, this is impressive. So what we got? They're going to come in nice and smoothly together, I think. It's strange watching the footage from a tablet. This is the first time I've done that, and it does look the colours look weird, but yeah, it looks very smooth. And they will come in with what, a 24-25? Yeah, for all 3 riders. So yes, 24-25. Okay, the second of the West London teams, VR1. So this is their top team. Oh, a glitch there. I normally edit those out. I must have missed that one. That was me tabbing back to myself. Okay, so 4 riders gone up the road. Are they going to leave behind Stu Fawn, or is he going to get back on? He's 20 metres behind, is he? Oh no, this is Thomas Bjork we're watching. So yeah, I think Stu's been left behind. He's not going to get back onto these 3 riders. And in fact, Bjork might not get back on either. So it might just be these 3 riders to the front. And this is a valid tactic, providing the 3 riders are going full gas. And there are 3 and not 2. Then it makes sense to push on and not ease up for a 4th rider with only the 3 to count. But you must stay together. You don't want to let any gaps open up between the wheels. You've got to stay together because the time is given on the 3rd rider. And you don't want the 3rd rider coming in a couple of seconds after the first 2. So that's good riding. Well done, Team VR1. And they come in 24:04. That's a good time. Okay, so who have we got up next? We're getting to the tail end of this. Team Viper. And I think Team Viper clawed a place back in today's event. In fact, I'm pretty sure you've seen the results later on. Team Viper were the team of the day in terms of performance. I'm not biased, folks. This is not my team. OTR are my team, but I am impressed with the way this team, which is why I used them for the featurette I did on the drafting, because they ride so well together. You can see the red numbers from the rider on the front, and they almost always do this. When the rider gets to the front, he pushes the red numbers. The other riders are getting good drafting off him. Look at the green numbers again to see the amount of savings the riders behind are getting. They do good drafting. I mean, he's pushing 7.4 watts is Harding off the front. You know, so pushing big watts off the front. The other riders are drafting off him, saving a little bit of energy. They're going red themselves and really pushing this to the line to get the fastest time. Okay, Harding's got a little bit of a gap. Chris is calling him up. Yeah, nicely done. And Chris Little putting his arms in the air for me. Well done, Chris. That's a good ride by this team. And as I say, the team of the day in terms of results, as you'll see later. So I think we've got 2 to go, have we? Who's up next? OTR Blue. No, 3 to go, actually. So OTR Blue up next. I don't think there was very much between OTR Blue and Viper. I think Viper almost caught them. And again, what you're going to see here, folks, is you can see that James is a rider off the back, will quickly get back on the wheel. And they'll probably ride as a foursome right up until the last few metres. And then my guess is that they could well end up splitting for 3 riders to gun it to the line. But it wouldn't surprise me if all 4 didn't come over the line together. A very strong and a very well drilled team, this. Oh, apologies for that. That was obviously I think I know what happened there. Was that that could have been where Neil Walker had a bit of a dropout, because you notice that he very, very quickly got shot out the back. So I think that's where Neil Walker had the dropout, and you get these 3 riders going over the line. There you go. And they did it in, was it 23:49? Yeah. Okay, and as I say here, we lost to Meek coverage. They did it in 23:13. Not that far behind True 2, as you see from this footage here. I wish we could have had the footage, because they were closing on them. If you look at the 5 and 10 kilometre splits, Tumeki were actually closing up on 3R True 2, who were down to 3 riders. And that's probably why True 2 were down to 3 riders in the final kilometre. Not a problem, providing all 3 of them can stay together. But you don't often see them down to 3 at that stage in a team time trial. Normally they manage to hang on to 4 or even 5 riders going into the last kilometre to go point. Not always, it depends on who's got the good legs. But they always put in a top performance, this team. And they are currently the team to beat. They've been so for the last few weeks that I've been covering this event. And they finish together, as you can see. No gaps here, they'll just finish all nicely together, all over the line, wheel to wheel, so that there's no gaps in the time. There we go. And 23:02. So what's that? 11 seconds in front of Tumeki. So Tumeki did a really, really good ride. And again, apologies for not having that footage at the finish. And that, folks, is more or less a wrap. I've just put up the results and the league tables for you. Now you can pause the video here and explore these league tables. I think they're on screen for about 7 or 8 seconds. But you can pause the video here if you want to. But I'm going to wrap the show up here. And hopefully we can see you all next week for the final week 12. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe.